The world doesn't belong to the smartest man. It belongs to the madman who believes he's already chosen. Machiavelli knew this. With a cold sneer, he mocked those who trusted logic over illusion. Power was never about truth, it was about the story people obey. And in this video, you'll see why delusional belief isn't madness but a weapon, one that builds empires from ashes and makes men untouchable with real moves you can put into practice within the first 24 hours after watching. The kind of belief that breaks rules, spits on failure, and bends destiny itself. It doesn't rest on reality, it warps reality. Machiavelli never called it delusion. He called it necessity. Because when the world ridicules you, when logic shouts you're finished, only delusion dares to reply, I've only just begun. The world has never belonged to the reasonable. It rewards the irrational, the relentless, the men who believe in their own legend before the world gives them a single reason to. Madmen, outcasts, fools, until they win. Then they're remembered as great. Machiavelli understood this cruelty better than most. In The Prince, he didn't glorify reason or moderation. He glorified results. And results, more often than not, are born not from logic, but from delusion. Ask yourself, what separates a lunatic from a legend? Only one thing: success. History is littered with the corpses of realists, men who waited for the right time, played it safe, and humbled themselves into obscurity. But it immortalizes the fanatics who charged into the storm with nothing but raw belief. Alexander the Great truly thought he was the son of Zeus, not symbolically, but literally. He wasn't satisfied with being a king, he believed he was divine. And because he did, his men believed it too. His soldiers fought like they were led by a god. His enemies collapsed like they were fighting one. When you believe your blood is sacred, retreat becomes sacrilege. Victory isn't optional, it is identity. Napoleon crowned himself emperor, not in the name of France, not under God, but with his own hands. That wasn't arrogance. It was psychological warfare. A declaration. I don't need divine right. I am the right. Muhammad stood alone in Mecca with words that could have gotten him executed. Yet he proclaimed them boldly, endlessly, against a raging tribe. Not because he had armies, he had belief. And belief became empire. These men didn't triumph because they had better tools or more resources. They triumphed because their faith in themselves roared louder than the world's doubt. They refused to see reality the way everyone else did. Here lies the truth Machiavelli hinted at but never dared shout: in the brutal game of power, the delusional man often defeats the reasonable man. Why? Because people don't follow logic. They don't even follow evidence. They follow certainty. And certainty is magnetic, it overrides the senses. When someone speaks with absolute conviction, even if they're wrong, most people fall in line. Not because the deluded man is right, but because no one dares to challenge a fire burning that bright. Look around. It's everywhere. The most powerful entrepreneurs didn't wait for the perfect plan. The most charismatic leaders didn't beg for approval. The most feared rivals didn't care if the odds were fair. They acted with the intensity of men who already won. That's the secret. Delusional belief creates momentum. It forces others to stop questioning and start adapting. It bends the environment to your will simply because you act like it already belongs to you. Engage with this video, comment, like, subscribe, because in this circle, silence doesn't count. Only those who act leave a mark. Most people wait for validation before they feel powerful. The delusional man doesn't wait. He declares power. He becomes power. And here's the catch: the moment he believes it, others do too. Machiavelli would have called this dangerous, but necessary. A prince must master illusion, shape perception, and walk the razor's edge between fiction and domination. And the most dangerous illusion of all is the one you cast on yourself. You can lie to others, that's useful. But when you lie to yourself so completely that you no longer recognize the difference, when your blood burns with a purpose only you can see, that's when you become unstoppable. Failure no longer exists because you've already decided it can't. Fear no longer binds you because nothing shakes the man possessed. You don't just move forward, you drag destiny with you. So laugh at the madman. Mock the one who speaks like victory is already his. But when the dust settles, when the timid fall back, when the reasonable hesitate, he's still standing. Not because he waited for proof. Because he became the proof. And in a world that rewards courage wrapped in delusion, that is the man who wins. Your enemy expects hesitation. He expects doubt in your voice, fear in your eyes, uncertainty in your next move. That's how most people live, carefully, politely, begging for permission to matter. But then you enter, eyes cold, posture unbroken, voice declaring ambition like law. And everything shifts. Because you carry something more dangerous than a sword. You carry delusion. And in the hands of someone who knows how to wield it, delusion is a weapon of war. Machiavelli never used the word delusion, but he understood its power. He wrote of appearances, of perception, of fabricating greatness even when it wasn't real. Why? Because people don't respond to truth. They respond to the performance of truth. When you walk with delusional self-belief, you don't just reshape how people see you, you reshape how they see themselves compared to you. They feel smaller, weaker, less certain. They begin doubting their reality while you keep rewriting yours. Let's be clear, this isn't confidence. Confidence still waits for approval. It needs applause, reassurance, validation. Delusional belief doesn't. It burns on its own. It doesn't need permission. It doesn't ask. It moves. And when you believe in yourself beyond reason, you commit to actions other men wouldn't dare attempt. That's what makes it a weapon. It stretches your aggression, your reach, your appetite for risk. Your opponent measures you by logic, calculating what a reasonable man would do. But you're no longer reasonable. You're possessed. And possession terrifies. Here's the Machiavellian truth: power isn't about being right. It's about being sure. Certainty unsettles. Certainty commands respect, even when it's wrong. In a world drowning in gray, people crave black and white. They crave someone who knows. So when you speak, never offer possibilities, only verdicts. Don't say, "I think I can win." Say, "It's already mine." Don't say, "Maybe I'm good enough." Say, "I was built for this." The aim isn't to persuade through facts, but to dominate through conviction. And the secret? Conviction spreads. Delusional belief is viral. People adopt it not because they truly believe in you, but because you seem too certain to be ignored. Your reality infects theirs. That's why kings never beg. That's why leaders never ask. That's why Machiavelli wrote, "A prince must appear resolute, even when he is not." Because once you act like a lion, the sheep don't question if you're pretending, they scatter. But here's where most fail. They think delusion is just performance. No. Delusion only works when you embody it, when your every move matches the identity you've forged. The delusional man doesn't just talk. He builds. He trains like a warrior before the war begins. He enters rooms like he already owns them. He writes his name like it belongs in history. And people believe him, not because he's proven anything yet, but because no one wants to be the fool who doubted a legend in the making. They'd rather stand beside him, even if he's wrong, than against him if there's any chance he's right. That's how delusion wins wars. Not by justifying itself, but by projecting with such force that resistance breaks before the fight begins. And here's the final twist: delusional belief doesn't live in your head, it creates a world others are dragged into. You pull them inside your vision. You dictate the rules. You decide what's possible. Because power doesn't care about truth. Power only cares who gets to define truth. So use it. Walk like failure doesn't exist. Speak like your words seal outcomes. Think like defeat was erased from history before the battle began. And remember, to most, you'll look insane until the day you look prophetic. Because you didn't wait for the world to agree. You forced it to surrender. That is weaponized delusion. It doesn't arrive as a miracle. It isn't luck. It's engineered, brick by brick, in silence, in fury, in defiance of everything called reasonable. You don't wait for it. You forge it. And if you're weak now, if you're uncertain, if you feel small, perfect. Because delusion is most dangerous when it's born from nothing. That's what makes it terrifying, not its volume, but its impossibility. It shouldn't exist. And yet, it does. So how do you forge it? Let's tear down the illusion and uncover the machinery behind the madness. Stage 1: Kill permission. Most men never rise because they wait. Waiting to be noticed. Waiting to be validated. Waiting for someone to grant them the right to move. Delusion begins the moment you kill that instinct. You don't need permission, you never did. Machiavelli's prince never begged for blessings. He seized the throne. He manufactured the right to rule. So must you. Burn the idea that you must deserve power. Act like it's already yours. Your enemies will figure it out later. Stage 2: Speak like a tyrant. Words are architecture. Every phrase of weakness lays another brick in your prison. The delusional man never says, "I hope I can. Maybe things will work out. Let's see what happens." No. He speaks prophecy. This will happen. I'm inevitable. It's already written. People are wired to detect doubt in speech, but they're just as wired to bow to conviction. Speak with inevitability, and they conform. Not because they trust you, but because your certainty leaves nowhere for doubt. Stage 3: Move like you're untouchable. The body doesn't lie. Movement either betrays fear or amplifies legend. Delusion must live in your posture. Stand like a general. Hold eye contact like a king receiving tribute. Walk with the rhythm of someone who owns the floor. This isn't acting, it's rewiring. You're conditioning your nervous system to treat power as your natural state. And over time, it will be. Stage 4: Burn the evidence. The world will drown you in numbers, logic, and statistics. Proof of why you'll fail. Proof of why you're not ready. Proof of why you should quit. That's when you strike the match. Delusion is not just belief, it's rebellion. You see the evidence and you say, irrelevant. You stare at your bank account, your reputation, your failures, and you whisper, none of this matters. Because your mind is already 5 years ahead, seeing the crown, hearing the applause. This is the divide between pretenders and the chosen. Most simulate belief. Few refuse to see any other outcome. That refusal, that blindness, that's where the monster is born. Stage 5: Protect the myth. Once delusion becomes your fortress, guard it. Doubt will attack, from outside and from within. Some days, your conviction will fracture and reality will claw back in. Kill it. Silence the voice. Cut off the influence. Mute the friend who urges you to be realistic. You are not realistic. You are weaponized belief. And if you defend that myth long enough, it hardens into truth. The world bends. People adapt. Reality realigns. Not because you were right, but because you refuse to be wrong. That is how empires rise. That is how nobodies become nightmares. Machiavelli said it plainly, it is better to be feared than loved, if one cannot be both. But there is something more intoxicating than fear, greater than love, belief. When others start to believe in you, not for who you are, but for how unshakable you appear, you win. And once your delusion is accepted by the crowd, it stops being delusion. It becomes destiny. Let's not lie, delusional self-belief can wreck you. It can drain your fortune, stain your name, burn every bridge you ever built. It can leave you mocked, exiled, screaming into the void. They will call you arrogant. They will call you delusional. And maybe they're right. But Machiavelli would not flinch. To him, power was never safety. Power was outcome. And here's the brutal truth, caution kills more dreams than failure ever could. Play it safe, and you might survive. But you'll never dominate. You'll never lead. You'll never bend history. You'll be efficient, but invisible. Productive, but disposable. Respected, but never feared. And a man who is never feared is a man who can be erased. Think delusion is dangerous? Good. So is realism, in a world ruled by predators. The true enemy isn't delusional thinking, it's limited thinking. The kind that whispers, stay humble. Be patient. Know your place. That's the poison that buries kings as peasants. That cages killers in 9-to-5 routines. That turns gods into ghosts. Machiavelli would remind you, the world is not just. Virtue alone is not rewarded. The world bends to those who force it to look. And no one seizes its gaze more violently than the man who moves without fear of failure. The man who doesn't flinch when mocked. The man who keeps building his legend while the mob throws stones. He knows what they don't, that reality resists belief, but eventually, belief bends reality. Yes, delusional self-belief is dangerous. But that danger is the signal you've stepped beyond the cage. People will warn you. You're reckless. You're unrealistic. You're risking too much. Of course you are. You're not trying to survive, you're trying to rule. You're not waiting for a future, you're rewriting one. And rewriting always comes with blood. But weigh the cost of refusing. What happens if you never believe beyond reason? If you never burn the script handed to you? If you never become the myth? Then you become ordinary. And in the realm of power, ordinary is death. Because no one protects the man who blends in. No one fears the man who conforms. No one follows the man who doubts himself. Such men are erased, quickly, quietly, forever. So yes, delusion can burn you. But if you wield it with calculation, persistence, and cold discipline, it becomes more dangerous to your enemies than to you. That's the Machiavellian method, use the madness, never let it use you. Stay sharp, stay adaptive, but never surrender the grand belief. Sometimes the delusional man fails. But when he succeeds so brutally, so outrageously, that it rewrites everyone's sense of what is possible. And the same people who laughed in the beginning, they kneel in the end. Not because you were lucky, but because you were relentless. Because your belief didn't bend, it crushed everything against it. Machiavelli never feared failure. He feared obscurity. He feared being ruled by lesser men who dared to believe louder than anyone else. So here's the final calculation. Yes, delusion can destroy you. But it can also deify you. If you are willing to walk that razor's edge, to risk everything, then what begins as delusion becomes destiny. Delusion isn't the end, it's ignition. It moves you when the world says stop. It gives you the eyes of a prophet and the will of a tyrant. But once belief survives mockery, failure, and isolation, you face the real test, turning delusion into myth. Because belief in yourself is powerful, but belief in your legend, that is immortality. Let the weak cling to motivation. Let the mediocre recite affirmations. You're past that. You're not here to feel good. You're here to alter every room you enter. Machiavelli called this reputation, but not as the masses understand it. Not to be liked. Not to be respected. To be feared. To be untouchable. To be inevitable. Your name must carry weight when you're not in the room, especially when you're not in the room. So how do you become the myth? Let's break it. Move 1. Live like you're already a legend. Every movement, every word, every silence, treat it as if the world is watching. Not because you're faking, but because you're conditioning reality to obey your script. Legends don't bow to humility. They move with entitlement, because they've already decided they're chosen. When you act like a myth, people stop seeing the man. They see the force. Move 2. Turn your wins into lore. Victories, no matter how small, must be amplified. Never say I got lucky. Never say it wasn't much. Burn that language. Say instead, I planned it. I made it happen. I warned them. Every win is a chapter in your story. Every setback becomes prophecy fulfilled. People don't remember data, they remember legend. So tell the story where you are always in control, always the architect, always 10 steps ahead. Let them fear how often you're right. Move 3. Guard the illusion with iron discipline. Once delusion hardens into myth, it will be attacked. They will try to humble you. They will test you. They will wait for cracks. Let them. But never show weakness. Machiavelli taught, a ruler must never bleed in public. The myth is sacred. The moment you let doubt slip, the legend unravels. You're no longer playing to win battles. You're playing to be untouchable. That means every second is performance, not for the crowd, but for the destiny you're forging. Move 4. Let others carry the story. Power peaks not when you declare your greatness, but when others whisper it for you. Your myth must spread like a virus, carried in private rooms, murmured like prophecy, feared, envied, imitated, never ignored. When your name tightens jaws, when rivals reshape plans around you, when admirers mimic your silence and posture, you've arrived. Not because you shouted, but because your presence lingers after you've gone. And that presence, that is the final form of delusional self-belief. Not blind hope, not madness, but a forged divinity where man and myth become indistinguishable. Machiavelli's verdict? He would have smiled at the madness, applauded the audacity, and whispered the truth cowards avoid. He who controls the illusion controls the world. Delusional self-belief is not self-help. It is self-crowning. It is the declaration, I will not wait for history to name me. I will write it myself. And if you write it long enough, bleeding, burning, building, the world must yield. It can mock a man. It can delay a king. It can crucify a prophet. But it cannot kill a myth. So trace the forbidden path, the path of the man who believes with such violence that reality itself is forced to bow. This is not confidence. This is not positive thinking. This is fire so blinding it sets the world alight before it dares question you again. The world does not remember the careful. It remembers the madman who declared victory before the war began. The one who believed he was chosen long before anyone else agreed. They laughed. They called him arrogant. While they hesitated, he conquered. Delusional belief is more than madness. It is a weapon. Speak with conviction and logic dissolves. Move with certainty and flaws are forgotten. Project the future and they mistake it for prophecy. That is power. You bend minds not with proof, but with pressure. You dominate rooms not with facts, but with force. But belief must be built. It begins in the shadows. When you kill the need for permission. When you speak as if your words create outcomes. When you move like you already wear the crown. When you look at evidence and still declare, I've already won. They will test you. They will mock you. They will warn you to slow down, to be realistic, to stay safe. And yes, there is risk. You may stumble, you may bleed, you may walk alone. But the greater danger is this: to blend in. To live unseen. To die without consequence. No one fears the man who doubts himself. No one follows the man who waits for proof. But they will follow a myth. That is the true evolution of belief, when it stops being your secret and becomes everyone else's law. When your name walks into the room before you. When your silence cuts sharper than words. When your presence feels inevitable. At that point, you are no longer a man. You are legend. And once delusion survives long enough, it ceases to be delusion. It becomes destiny. So if you are done with smallness, if you are ready to move as though history has already reserved your place, then don't stop here. There is an entire arsenal waiting in the Machiavellian Power as Design playlist. A collection built to sharpen your edge, to strip away weakness, to give you the architecture of dominance. Because here, we don't chase power. We don't study it. We become it.